So did they take up water skiing because you introduced it to them? Anybody take it up and do it as a sport?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And many of them are still now working in the companies down in, there's Correct Craft, that now it's, there's Malibu Boats, all these different places. It's Cypress Gardens, that's where I won the championships. The funny thing about that was the man that won, the boy, was also from Land Lakes, Wisconsin, and he was going to school in Tampa, Florida. Didn't even know he was going to be there, and here the two of us won the whole tournament. And in water skiing, it was jump, slalom, and tricks, three things. And you had to achieve all three of those things, and they added the points together, and that's how you won. But Dick Pope was one of the founders of the water skiing movement, and he had gone to Rollins. And so that's why it started.
Wow.
But no, we have my own son and his wife, Connie Bergbark, Pat Morris. They ended up at San Diego State University, and he joined the water ski team when he was getting his master's in mechanical engineering at San Diego State. And she was 2 or 3 years younger. And they both won the collegiate tournaments were all happening then. Then water skiing was not anything supported by any colleges. It was all supported by whoever was doing it, just like horse racing or all the other different sports. But so then their two children have now been the national champions for about the last 10 years for the country and for the collegiate sports. And now, guess what? They're working. They graduated from college and they're working.
Well,
So we
they
all
still water ski for fun, though.
Oh yeah, oh, that's a big part of it all. Everybody's got to have a water ski boat. At least it rests in the winter, and the horses keep eating, so it's a better sport for parents.
Yeah.
But and it's just been even though, if you show our dogs or people what people do in their leisure time, they gather groups together of people of like interests, and that's what it was. We just loved being together, doing the same things and sharing our stories. So what else? Oh, back to me. I guess I got married, and my husband graduated from Northwestern University with a graduate degree and went to work for a bank in Los Angeles.
Ooh.
So
That's how you ended up in
in
California?
1959, I left for California, and our first son was born in December of that year in Santa Monica, and then the second son was born 3 years later, and we were there for 15 years until my husband was transferred by Goldman Sachs up to San Francisco, and that brought me to Danville. And
What year was that, roughly?
I moved to Danville in 1976, and my youngest son was born 2 days later in John Muir Hospital.
You weren't supposed to be moving?
No, he was about 3 months early.
Oh,
He
okay.
couldn't wait to get to Danville.
He just loves Danville. Huh?
Yeah. And we bought an historical home called Oak Hill Farm and up Stone Valley Road, and in a community called Alamo Oaks. And was supposedly told to us it was one of the first subdivision type of a place in Northern California. 5 acres was the limit on your property, and it was founded in 1936. So we moved into this house with these split family. I had a 17-year-old, 13-year-old, not quite 2, and the new baby. And we bought this old house that needed a lot of work, and it at one point had been 113 acres, and it now houses Monte Vista High School, the Little League fields, the Mormon Church, and part of Los Cerros, and it's on the Danville Alamo line because we all decided when mailboxes came in and zip codes, they didn't want to drive their horse to the new post office up Tassajara they'd been going to Alamo all these years, and so we seceded from the Danville city election, and
Okay.
and I, of course, rallied the troops and got the petitions and did all of that. I was very active in Republican politics from 1950 on, and I had the Oak Hill Farm was sort of like the clubhouse for the whole area, and we had many parties, and many historical parties had been happening. In fact, Fortney Pete Stark went to Congress from that home, and
Wow.
and we entertained a lot of the people running for state offices, and I served on the Central Committee, Contra Costa County, and I also was a 25 years worth of PTA president. And then,
So were you like political your whole life, or is this something you found?
well, I was very
once you got here?
political my whole life because I lived in Maple Bluff in Madison, Wisconsin, and that's where the governor lived. The Robert La Follette Farm was where my dad built his house, first house. We used to deliver Girl Scout cookies to the chief Supreme Court and the governor and the congressman and the senator and the whole 9 yards. And then our school, we were given awards for all around excellence and most improved, and the scholarship won 3 of them, and I won the all around excellent award. It was given by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So we just grew up with all of that. It was our duty, and I thought as a wife, my duty was to be involved in my community. In my Los Angeles years, I put on Christmas parades that were bigger than the Rose Parade because they all came to Tarzana. Ran the Chamber of Commerce for 4 years as a volunteer. So I did a lot of different things. I was president of different organizations, Newcomers Club, you name it. I was president of it. But I couldn't go to college and just become a homemaker. And now, of course, I find myself at 82 with no pension. If I hadn't gone to work in 1988 when I was divorced, my husband decided on a different life. I would have, it would have no Social Security because you had to work for 10 years in order to do that. Unfortunately, one of the parents in our group at the school in Walnut Creek gave me a job, and worked for him for 10 years to qualify. So I just heard on the radio that these wonderful people that come in over the borders get $3,000 or more a month to live on, and my Social Security is $811 a month. And my husband worked for Goldman Sachs, and we paid a lot of money out. But because I was a homemaker, I didn't qualify for any of that.
Okay. There was no alimony or anything, huh?
No, in those days you got the big house.
You got the house.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, but then how did you afford the house?
Yeah.
And that's what happened to a lot of women in my particular age group. They talk about the millennials and the this and all the different things and put a tag on it. But there was a group of women that really, that never thought their being a mother wasn't given dollars, so the government had no trace of that. And I always figured if I had to cut hair and do all the things anybody else could do to save money, that was my job.
Right.
The gardening, the cleaning, the washing, and everything else. Even though I was married to somebody from Goldman Sachs, whoop-de-doo. I mean, you were busy. At one point, before Reagan came in, we were paying 75% of our income was all going to taxes. So, pardon me for giving you a lecture on what's happened to America, but that's really what's happened. And here we all are doing different things that we could do individually, but then there's so many rules that fortunately we're getting rid of some of them in California and other places. And Even in Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker has reduced the property taxes and everything else there, but he just got defeated because most of the people that want everything for free didn't want him anymore. So there's a lot of things in the world for people to decide what they want to do here, but I'm for freedom. I'm sorry, I'm a patriot. And in our Oak Hill farm right here in Danville, they were asking for donations of $100 to buy a brick when they built the All Wars Memorial that's in Oak Hill Park. Yeah. And my dad's name is there. I did that. And my flagpole was taller than the school flagpoles on the property in 313 Cross Road in Alamo, California.
So when you had you said that your sort of little farmlet there, did you have horses? Did you have a large garden? Or?
Well, the beauty of it, it had been sold off the 113 acres.
You had like at least 5 acres, though.
No, well, there was 5, but then they added on to it. And then in the 50s, when the property owner and Danville was being formed and all the communities were happy, they were looking for space for a high school. Yeah. The topography of Alamo Oaks is there's 7 different floodplains of hills and stuff like that. And so in the middle of this 113 acres, it was for horses, for grazing and all that sort of thing, and cattle and whatnot. And so they made a park out of that. But it had, after Courtney Pete Stark sold 7 acres, he had bought and added 2 and that sort of thing. So when we came to town, we bought the swimming pool, the big house, 3-car garage with a gas pump, the freezer set up in one of the car garages, because the Mormon community pretty much developed Alamo Oaks. And so where was I going with this? So anyway, the fun about Oak Hill Farm, family, the woman was from New Zealand, and her husband was Dan Moody. They bought what we called the working part of the ranch. There was 11 buildings. And of course then there was the drought in the
70s, yeah.
Yeah. And the well was on their lot. There was advertised for 3 wells, but we could only find one that might work. So we ended up putting the money in to get the well working, because they had 5 horses, and they were involved with the 4-H with their children. They had 3 children. In fact, you're sitting right here interviewing me in the home of Jerry Vaughn, who was the other working person within our community, because most all families had horses, and they all had their kids involved in 4-H. They had sheep, goats, chickens,
all the livestock,
all of it. And then the horseshoer would come to our driveway to shoe the horses. My little boys could run over and collect the eggs, and they had pony carts, and we had the best birthday parties for the school. And the 2 families ran it as the farm, but they had all the work over there, and I was raising all the teenagers and the kids over on my side.
Oh, it sounds like you had all the work.
No, it was a wonderful life. It really was. And we had, all the group parties, everybody's birthday parties or whatever.
So you were quite the hostess, huh?
Oh, yes, I love people. I love giving, and did the best I could. I took in students. I took in people even back from in the 1960s that came over, and one of my friends had her cleaning houses, and then her mother wanted to come. It's the same thing, immigration. And so I took Elba into my home, and her mother, we got her a job across the street at a movie actor's house. Because growing up in Tarzana, we had Bob Crane and, of course, Tarzan. Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote the stories there, and we had Robert Wagner. We lived across the street from the babysitter. I mean, we were all... And that was all horse country, too. Tarzana was.
Then.
Yeah.